Hello. Welcome back. It's time for Leading Women in Tech. I'm your host, Tony Collis, and today we're diving into the art of authentic executive presence for women. Have you ever been told to work on your executive presence, but left wondering exactly what does that mean? Or maybe you've tried to model your behavior after your male colleagues, only to find it doesn't work for you. You're still getting that you need to work on your executive presence and thinking, what am I supposed to do with that? Well, today I'm going to discuss the very real, unique challenges we face as women when it comes to executive presence, define what it truly means to have executive presence, and of course, share with you some practical tips to cultivate your authentic presence that commands respect, influence, and just enhances your overall ability to navigate the workplace with confidence and authenticity. When we navigate executive presence, it's an intricate balance. It's a unique set of challenges. We lack role models. That's one of the biggest hurdles I see with women that come and work with me is we don't have role models around us who are facing the same challenges as us. So men's executive presence doesn't provide a model that works for us. We will receive vague feedback about needing to improve without any clear guidance on how to do so, partly because we're getting this feedback from men, because more often than not, those are the people around us. But they can't articulate what's wrong. They just know something's not quite right. It leaves us trying to fit into a mold that wasn't designed for us, leading to frustration and confusion. Another challenge is different standards. I will say it many times. I've said it so many times before. But what works for men doesn't always work for women due to societal expectations. For instance, men often receive positive reinforcement for being assertive and direct, while women displaying the same level of assertiveness will be perceived as aggressive or abrasive. This double standard creates a no-win situation where we're constantly being told we need to navigate something, but we don't have anybody showing us how to navigate it. We're told be assertive, but don't be aggressive. It's like, where is that line? The double standard is really painful because actually, when men figure out the fine line that we end up having to navigate, they do better too. It's just that they don't have to figure it out as early on. Which also brings me to self-promotion versus humility. Again, massive double standards. Men are expected in society and encouraged to self-promote, showcase their achievements. But when we promote as women, we're told we're boastful or arrogant. Our accomplishments are more likely to be overlooked. If we don't promote ourselves, we can't just keep our heads down and expect to get noticed. And it feels like a difficult no-win situation, balancing self-promotion with humility in a way that gives us respect without backlash. How do we do that? There's also risk-taking behaviors. I have heard so many times about how as women, we are less risk-taking, we're more risk-averse, we don't do things as well. But then when we do take risks, we're viewed as reckless and irresponsible. Men are admired and rewarded for taking risks. But our failures are judged far more harshly than men's. At least that's often how it feels. I'm not sure I've actually got data that says that's truly the case, but there is definitely a societal expectation that women are more risk averse. And also I've seen us being critiqued far more harshly for failures than men. So we're told to take risks, but don't take too many. Don't take them in this situation, but do take them in a situation. But then when it doesn't go right, we've done something wrong. How are we supposed to navigate that? And all of this stuff then comes into confidence. And again, if we are displaying confidence, we can be perceived as overconfident, arrogant, and a challenge to others. Men showing confidence is seen as competence, capability. Having that same level of confidence can be perceived as overconfident, undermining our credibility. So we're constantly trying to gauge how much confidence should I be displaying? We're frustrated, we're overwhelmed, we lack energy because of this. We're just tired and lacking fulfillment because we're spending so much energy trying to figure out how am I supposed to navigate all of this? Communication as well. Again, women have a reputation in society for being softer. Let's just use that word, get it out there. Whereas blunt, direct communication is often expected and accepted from men. But when we do it, we're seen as harsh or unfriendly. The problem is, sometimes it's really important to get to the point and not be soft. I'm putting that in air quotes if you're not watching me on video. And that's really difficult. We need to, again, find the knife edge that we can navigate, which is getting things across clearly and succinctly, but without being seen as harsh or unfriendly. Blunt communication in men is tolerated. I do not mean to say it's acceptable, but it is tolerated. But for us as women, we can't do that. We have to figure it out actually very early on in our careers, I've found. I've seen women who are quite senior who haven't figured out, and they sort of have made their way despite it. If they then figure it out, everything else becomes easier. Networking and socializing, same thing, right? Now, we've been talking for decades about the old boys network, socializing out of hours, going down the pub if you're in Europe, going out to a bar, playing golf, all that kind of stuff. Men are expected to socialize in professional settings. And actually, I think one of the things that I like seeing is the shift away from the men who don't actually like doing that now having a place, because women are forcing that conversation, right? There are women who like to go and play golf. Hats off to them. I don't. But we have this issue that if we don't engage in similar behaviors, we're accused of forming cliques or showing favoritism, and we're isolated from our colleagues. Our professional networks are vital, but we have to make sure that we're perceived the right way without being unfairly criticized. Another issue I want to talk about is competition. Competitive natures are celebrated in men, seen as a driver of success. It is something to be valued, uplifted, encouraged. But when women are competitive, we're told we're not collaborative, we're not team players. It becomes detrimental to the environment of the team. Again, it's one of those ones that when we figure it out, we actually outperform our male peers, because it is really important to be a team player and collaborative, and it's finding that delicate balance. But you've got to be demonstrating authority without being unapproachable. We've got to navigate this tightrope of authority and control, getting things across succinctly and clearly without being perceived as unapproachable, intimidating, or not sharing the celebration with everybody else. Because if we don't, team cohesion, open communication go down. Now, the worst thing here is I would say the majority of the women I work with, if anything, are too giving of recognition to their team. There is a balance. Sometimes you just need to own that you did this. But the problem is that we can be told by others who are peers and above us, who have control of our ability to get buy-in, promotions, resources, but not actually the people we work with day to day to get things done. Our team thinks we're great. Our team has great team cohesion, open communication, feels valued, feels that there's a collaborative environment. But those around us who have other control will be like, oh, you're not collaborative enough. Oh, you're too competitive, because you have to demonstrate it at that executive table. Which also brings me to emotional restraint and empathy. So here's the thing. Men are expected to hold emotional restraint, composure. They also have less shit thrown at them. Excuse me, I can't find a better word. Let's just own it, right? They have less thrown at them on average. I'm not saying that they have an easy ride either in the workplace. There are plenty of things that go wrong where we just feel like, wow. Well, women, if we hold that composure, we're told that we might be lacking empathy or are cold. But here's the thing. If you cry, if you display emotions, it's seen as unprofessional. I have done my fair share of crying in the workplace. I've done some in public in the sense of in front of somebody who I wish I wasn't crying in front of because I just could not control it. But I've done my fair share of crying in the bathroom. I will just own that, right? Because it was just a horrible situation. And I've also been in situations where my empathy is dial sky high and I'm feeling pain on behalf of somebody else. As a coach, I have this all the time. It's my job to be empathetic though, as long as I don't take it with me. Hold, don't carry. Go back and check that episode. Hold, don't carry if you want to know what I'm talking about there. But as women, if we actually demonstrate how we're really feeling, we're told we don't have what it takes to be strong and decisive and do the hard things, we're seen as weak in some way. And so sometimes our reaction is to put a brick wall up. And I've seen so many women do this. Sometimes it starts quite early in our lives. We've learned, even as young as a young child, that we shouldn't be displaying emotions because it doesn't serve us as girls and then as women. And then we come across as really cold. And it's really hard to build empathy with a woman who comes across like that, because women are expected in society to be warm and welcoming and empathetic. What is not recognized is this is a measure of containing our own emotional response. As we have to understand this, we have to show emotional restraint while demonstrating empathy. We have to meet somebody where they're at and demonstrate empathy, but not over-demonstrate. Addressing everything I've just said, the double standards, the striving for this balanced approach, it's always a balance, is about observing great leaders. It's about looking at who has a great impact, irrespective of gender. The problem is you're probably surrounded by people who are more likely to be male and therefore aren't experiencing the same challenges you are. You need to be looking several layers up. The great leaders at the top, particularly at the top of a big organization, typically have most of what I've just talked about down. The problem is you might not be reporting to them, and therefore this is not being demonstrated to you. And so the journey is loaded with challenges. And in addition, even if you are seeing these role models, if it's a man, they haven't had to figure out the complexities that you're going to have to surpass. They haven't figured out the nuances. Because the key blend is assertiveness with empathy, decisiveness with collaboration, confidence with humility, to truly embody authentic executive presence. So now you've got a picture of what this challenge looks like. I want to talk about what is executive presence. Well, at its core, executive presence is the impact we have on those around us, how we navigate our professional environment. It's about how others perceive us. We have executive presence, whether you like it or not. You've had it since the first day in your first job. Your presence in a room, which later on is called executive presence, is how we communicate, the gravitas we bring to our roles. It might seem elusive, but it boils down to appearance, communication, and gravitas. Appearance, though essential, is the least important of the three, but still necessary to create a foundation. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes because it has negative connotations to me. I don't think appearance should be about how well dressed you are, what you look like. It does have an element to that. We know, for example, that most politicians are above average height, slim. They have, the chiseled jaw. If you're a man, you're more likely to be taken seriously, which is just mind-boggling to me. So appearance, how you show up, and that is also how you hold yourself, is really important. But more important is communication and gravitas. Appearance is essential in that if you don't show up in the right way, and that can simply be that you have emotional control in the room, that is also appearance. But it is necessary for people to then pay attention to you and pay attention to your communication, your gravitas, which then have a more significant role. Communication is verbal and nonverbal. And gravitas is our ability to exude confidence, decisiveness, poise that truly makes an impact. You'll often hear various elements mentioned when discussing executive presence. They are fundamentally about supporting your communication, your gravitas. But I want to break this down a little bit more to what does it look like? So let's start with authenticity. Authenticity is essential. It's paramount to your success. Staying true to yourself, your values, builds your connections. It builds trust. I've talked about authenticity a lot in previous episodes, but it's really about emphasizing how crucial it is for establishing yourself. Effective communication is critical to your authenticity. You need to be involved in what you're saying and how you say it. You need to master both verbal and nonverbal communication. People need to hear you clearly. People need to hear you confidently. And people need to hear that you're consistent. A lot of the time, authenticity is about consistency. You come across as inauthentic if you're hand-wavy, you're changing your mind all the time. You say different things to different people, you gossip. That is all going to come across as inauthentic. If you are able to communicate clearly, confidently, consistently, you will be more authentic. Which brings me to confidence. You need confidence, but without crossing into arrogance. Confidence is about conveying competence, assurance, making others feel secure in your leadership. Appearance matters, albeit to a lesser extent. How you present yourself can convey quiet authority and calmness, helping set the tone in any room you enter. One of my very early mentors who really changed the way I approached my leadership, she would walk into a room. She was quite a short woman. She is quite a short woman, I should say. And she never dressed very flashy or anything like that. She was smart. And, she always, took care of her appearance, but she wouldn't put a lot of effort into it. I wouldn't say that she was wearing really expensive clothes. She definitely didn't wear lots of makeup. But it was more her appearance was the way she just quietly held space. She was a relatively quiet person. And yet today, she is a C-level executive in a very big Fortune 50 company, very influential. But she holds a quiet presence, a quiet authority. You walk into the room and this small woman just exudes presence. She says, pay attention to me without saying it. And that's what we're talking about really with appearance. It's a quiet authority and calmness when you enter a room, not needing to be heard by everybody, because you know what? People are going to hear you because you're that important, but without arrogance. She will never, ever take her opinions above somebody else's when there's something to hear. But she will make tough decisions. That's what we're talking about in terms of appearance. So let's talk about self-awareness and self-regulation. These are foundational to composure, effectively managing your emotions. And I will tell you firsthand that I only really figured this out as I became a coach. I'm okay at self-awareness, but my self-regulation, I've never been good at. As a coach, I've had to become very good at, and I wish I'd done this a decade ago. It ties in closely with emotional intelligence. My problem was, and I think for many of us, I have a lot of emotional intelligence in the sense of empathy and awareness of other people, but I didn't then turn that inwards. I didn't have self-awareness and resilience. High emotional intelligence and self-regulation enables you to connect with others, understand their perspectives, but then respond carefully in the right way to the different situations. You are very aware of what you are doing. So many of us, if you've not been trained in it, do not know how to do that. It's not normal. It's not an innate human trait. You've got to learn it. And then finally, influence and persuasion are key skills for your executive presence. Techniques for influencing, persuading others help you gain support for your ideas and initiatives, enhancing your ability to drive positive change within your organization. If you can focus on authenticity, effective communication, confidence, appearance, self-awareness, emotional intelligence, and influence, you are going to cultivate a powerful executive presence that gets respect, drives you forward, gives you fulfillment. Now I want to turn our attention to how your executive presence and its key components that I've just gone through intertwines with your personal brand. Because your personal brand is your toolkit. It is how people perceive you. You have a brand whether you like it or not, by the way. But when you bring executive presence to amplify you in the workplace, you have a stronger personal brand. You are able to showcase your unique strengths, your values, your professional identity. It's about how you present yourself to the world, both offline and online. And it's about how you show up every day. I want you to be conscious in crafting and maintaining your personal brand, because this is part of your executive presence. Your executive presence builds your personal brand, and your personal brand is your executive presence. It makes sure that everything that is demonstrated out there aligns with you, your leadership qualities, your leadership values that you want people to think of when they think of you. So it does start with social media and professional networking like LinkedIn, but it isn't just there. It's vital that how you show up reflects the brand you wish to convey. It's about how you show up in various settings, whether it's meetings, on LinkedIn, networking events, at conferences with your colleagues. When your behavior aligns with your brand, it builds trust and credibility with your colleagues and peers. When you are looking at this, you really want to be thinking of, who do I want to be? Do I want to be known for my transparency, my innovative thinking, my commitment to diversity and inclusion? What is it that is your brand? Is it that you are all about how you act and communicate, how you influence, how you talk to other people? Get alignment across everything you do Your professional outlook, online and offline, is going to give you greater confidence on authority and make sure people respect you for who you are. But you've got to consciously curate this. So this isn't just about doing everything I've talked about already in this episode around your executive presence. This is about building all of that into everything you do. Start with assessing your current reputation. Look at where you stand with colleagues. How do others understand you? How do others perceive you? Get feedback from colleagues, mentors, team members. Get somebody to look at your LinkedIn profile. Get an honest assessment that sets the foundation for meaningful change. One thing I've done is ask people what they think my values are. That's because there's two things. One, sometimes like, oh yeah, that is a value and I hadn't even thought of it. Another thing that happened was that is not one of my values. Why are people thinking that way? It really helps you understand the perception of others around you if you can ask such questions and get good feedback that's just going to help you grow. Even if you disagree with it, it's okay. It means that there's an element of somebody thinks that about you. If it's only one person, you don't need to worry about it. If it's 5, you do. It allows you to then become across as more consistent. If you find that different people say different things about you, is that because you both behave differently towards them? How can you provide more consistency? How can you be known as somebody who addresses their past mistakes openly, showcases your own commitment to growth? How are you leveraging mentors and sponsors who can advocate for you, but then you also advocate for others and open doors for others? Are you able to get support in how you navigate complex organizational dynamics? This is where coaching really comes in, right? Something complex going on at work, getting a coach to help you with this. There's a client of mine who I worked with a couple of years ago now. When she first came to me, she was frustrated, she was disheartened. She worked really hard. She was massively dedicated to her organization. And she told me that she'd been repeatedly told to work on her executive presence. But nobody could ever tell her what that was. It was vague, it was unhelpful. It kept coming up in her reviews. And she'd been told this was the reason she wasn't getting promoted to the C-level, right? She started to be more assertive in meetings, mirroring the behavior that she was told was probably what was needed, but it backfired. She was shut down. I think this happened just before she came to work with me. I think this was the last straw. She was like, I need to do something different. She was shut down for not giving others enough space to speak. She then tried sharing more data in her presentations, but she was then criticized for not tailoring her message to her audience and was eventually uninvited to those senior leadership calls. So she reached out to me and we had a deep dive into what was going on. Primarily, she was trying to emulate what worked for her male peers. She didn't understand why what worked for them wouldn't work for her. So we took a step back. I always am a big advocate of slow down to speed up. What were her strengths? What were her values? She loved her team. She would go above and beyond for them because she'd taken the time to understand each team member, what motivated them, their strengths, their weaknesses, where they wanted to grow and where they weren't interested in growing. She was a natural at building strong relationships and trust within her team. She had an amazing reputation with her team. The problem was people outside her team didn't see it. And we realized that she needed to take that same authentic approach in relationship building to her interactions with peers and leadership. But she had not done that. And digging into why was interesting. I think this applies to a lot of us. If we're intimidated by people, we quite often show up differently. When we have a position of innate authority or peerness, we show up with a sense of like camaraderie and an ability to build that connection. She hadn't felt able to show up that way with the executive leadership team or even actually her peers because they weren't experts in what she did. She was just below the executive team. So she was her peers, but people who'd never done her role. So we took the time to look through each of her peers first of all. We sat down for quite a long time, a couple of coaching sessions, I think we went through this. For each person that were her peers and the executive leadership team, what do they do? What do they care about? What keeps them awake at night? What topics did they bring up frequently in conversations? And when we did that, she walked away with a new ability to tailor her messages, to address the specific concerns and interests of her audience, but also know when to shut up. Because when they challenged her, they actually were challenging her on something that kept them awake at night, giving them space to articulate that Whereas when it was just something they were pointing out, she knew she could push back because it wasn't something that was keeping them awake at night. It was just an opportunity for them to point a hole at what she was doing, which she was ready and capable and willing to push back on. But when you push back too early on somebody who's very frightened, it makes them feel like they're being shut down. She was able to encourage collaboration instead of confrontation. The transformation within about 6 weeks was remarkable. We took a good couple of weeks to get going, but within 6 weeks of rolling this out, her executive presence had skyrocketed because suddenly she was showing up and being heard and listened, which gave her more confidence, more recognition, more respect. So she showed up even better. Her emotional intelligence skyrocketed because she was no longer in defensive mode, so she could actually pay attention to what was going on. Her thinking on her feet improved because she was able to actually own the room. And what it came down to was the power of understanding and leveraging her strengths rather than simply mimicking others. She figured out her strengths, she figured out her value system, and she took that into the room with her. She found her authentic leadership style, and it resonated and it propelled her career forward. Today, she's on that executive leadership team. If this lady's situation resonates with you and you're looking for support, please do reach out to me. Our Leadership Academy is a valuable resource for women in tech. We are all about leveling you up, helping you find fulfillment, step away from that low energy and confusion as to what is going wrong, being hyperproductive but not delivering and not sure what's going on or why. I want you to have the space to learn and share and grow, but at the same time, not take all the time in the world because none of us have that. So if that sounds good to you, we've got you covered. Click the link in the show notes, come book a call with me or my team, and we'll be happy to talk about it. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this episode. Is it resonated with you? Were you struggling? Or if you've got another topic you would like us to discuss, we are very keen to make sure that we are delivering content that is supporting you. And I say we because it's not just me. I brainstorm these topics with my entire team. My company helps me. They do some of the research that goes behind this whenever we talk about data. I would love it if we can deliver for you what you really need to have a more fulfilling career. Next episode, I'm going to be talking about some more tools for executive presence, providing with practical techniques to further improve. So don't miss it. Until next time, remember, stay in your tech leadership game, follow your dreams, because the world really does need that uniqueness that you bring as a leading woman in tech.